I entrusted my business, my entire life's work, to my own brother and sister for just 1 month. When I returned, the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. But the worst part began when they looked me in the eye and claimed they were the heroes who had saved the company from my own mistakes. This is the story of how I exposed their lies and gave them a choice: return everything or go to prison. My hands still shake when I think about it. I'm the founder and CEO of a moderately successful logistics company. I built it from the ground up over 10 years, starting with a single van and a dream. Today, we have a fleet of trucks and a team of 45 dedicated employees. It's my life's work, my pride and joy. I'm married to a wonderful woman, Aria, who has been my rock through all the long nights and stressful periods. We don't have kids yet. The company has always been our baby. The problem has always been my own family, my brother Will and my sister Jessica. They are both a few years younger than me. To put it politely, they are masters of self-promotion, but have never held a steady job for more than a year. They talk a big game, full of buzzwords and grand ideas, but their resumes are a patchwork of failed ventures and short-lived consulting gigs. For years, they've been hinting and sometimes outright asking for senior positions in my company. I've always politely refused, knowing they lack the experience, and more importantly, the work ethic. But then my parents, Eric and Sarah, got involved. For my 35th birthday dinner, they sat me down and gave me the speech.
Alex, you've done so well for yourself. We are so proud. But you have to think about your brother and sister. They look up to you so much.
They have so much potential, son. They just need a real chance, a stable environment to flourish. Your company is successful enough now. You can afford to give your own blood a leg up. It's what family does.
The pressure was immense. Aria saw how much it was tearing me apart. She, in her infinite kindness, thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Maybe they just needed responsibility to finally mature. So against my better judgment, I relented. I created 2 new business development manager roles for them. Their responsibilities were vague, mainly to observe and learn the business. 2 months ago, Aria and I went on our honeymoon, a trip we'd postponed for years. A full month in Southeast Asia, largely off-grid. I felt confident leaving. My senior management team is solid, and I told Will and Jessica to just keep things steady, not to make any big decisions, and to lean on the experienced team. I left them in charge as a symbol of trust, a trust I hoped they would finally earn. When I came back, I walked into a nightmare. My office felt different, tense. My loyal operations manager, David, a man who has been with me for 8 years, asked for an urgent meeting. He looked pale. He told me that in the month I was gone, Will and Jessica had instituted a reign of terror. They were arrogant and dismissive to longtime staff. They overruled my senior managers on key decisions, and they spent money like it was water. I pulled up the company's financials. I felt the blood drain from my face. Our credit lines were maxed out. Our accounts payable were flooded with invoices I didn't recognize from vendors I'd never heard of. Payments to our critical suppliers had been missed. We were teetering on the edge of insolvency. I called an immediate meeting with Will and Jessica. I expected apologies, excuses, maybe even fear. I got something far worse. I got gaslighting.
Alex, thank God you're back. We've been trying to hold the fort down. The company was in more trouble than you let on. We had to make some aggressive moves to save it.
Honestly, the systems you have in place are so outdated. We were trying to modernize to bring this company into the 21st century. It takes investment. We were navigating a crisis you left for us.
They sat there straight-faced and told me that the chaos was a result of their heroic efforts to save my company from my own mismanagement. They painted themselves as the saviors who had worked tirelessly while I was sunning myself on a beach. But they made one critical mistake, and I was already starting to notice it. I was so stunned I couldn't even speak. They had not only run my company into the ground, but they were also trying to convince me it was my fault. My own brother and sister. Now I'm sitting in the ruins of my business, with a mountain of debt, and 2 siblings who are either delusional or the most cunning sociopaths I've ever met. My wife is trying to be supportive, to keep the peace, to believe there's a misunderstanding. But I see the numbers. I see the invoices for consulting services from shell companies, for lavish dinners, for things that have nothing to do with logistics. They didn't just mismanage the company, they plundered it, and now they're trying to blame me. I don't know what to do. How do I even begin to fix this without completely destroying my family? This is the situation I'm in right now. I feel like I'm in a fog. If you've ever dealt with something like this, what was your first step? Subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and please leave your first thoughts or advice in the comments below. I could really use some outside perspective. Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your words of support and your advice has been a lifeline this past week. Many of you said the same thing. Get objective proof. Don't rely on emotions or their words. Trust the data. So that's what I've been doing. The first few days were about triage. I had to personally call my most important suppliers and clients, reassure them, and work out payment plans. I've put a freeze on all non-essential spending. The atmosphere in the office is funereal. Good employees are scared for their jobs, and I can see the "I told you so" in the eyes of my senior managers, even though they are too professional to say it. Arya has been my anchor. She's finally seen past the family-first ideal and is now firmly in protect what we've built mode. Her initial desire for peace has been replaced by a quiet, simmering anger on my behalf. She spent a whole weekend with me, armed with coffee and spreadsheets, helping me go through bank statements line by line. The picture is getting clearer, and it's uglier than I thought. It wasn't just mismanagement, it was strategic theft. We found charges for 5-star hotel stays in our own city, leases for 2 luxury cars, a sports coupe for Will, and a high-end SUV for Jessica, both under the company's name. Thousands of dollars spent at designer boutiques, all coded under client gifts. Yesterday, I had a conversation with my parents. I kept it calm. I simply explained that the company had serious financial issues that arose while I was away. Their reaction was heartbreakingly predictable.
Oh, Alex, don't be too hard on them. They were just trying their best. They're new to all of this.
Exactly. Business has its ups and downs. You're the expert, you'll fix it. The important thing is that you gave them a chance. We're so proud of you for that.
They are completely blinded by their favoritism. They refuse to even consider the possibility that Will and Jessica did anything wrong. It's clear I will get no help and no understanding from them. They are locked in a narrative where I am the successful son who must carry the weight of his less fortunate siblings. The biggest breakthrough came from a tip from my IT manager. He mentioned that Will and Jessica had insisted on using a private, off-the-books laptop for their sensitive business development work. They took it with them when I got back. I have a sinking feeling that the real evidence, the real plan, is on that machine. Based on your advice, I've taken the most difficult step yet. I've hired a forensic accountant. She's a former federal agent who specializes in corporate fraud. She's starting tomorrow. I gave her everything I've found so far. She told me without a flicker of emotion that this is a classic familial fraud case. And what she was about to uncover was far more calculated and devastating than I could have ever imagined. The fact that she has a name for it is somehow both terrifying and validating. I feel like I'm preparing for a war I never wanted to fight. Hiring the forensic accountant feels like a point of no return. I know I'm doing the right thing for my company and my employees, but I'm dreading what she'll find. What do you think is the worst-case scenario I should be preparing for? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, 2 weeks of holding my breath. The forensic accountant, Ms. Evans, has completed her preliminary investigation. Yesterday, she sat down with me and Arya and presented a 30-page report. What it contained was so much worse than just fancy dinners and leased cars. It was a calculated, systematic draining of my company's resources. Ms. Evans discovered that 2 weeks into my vacation, Will and Jessica set up a shell corporation. A consulting firm with a generic name, registered to a P.O. box. Over the next 2 weeks, they funneled nearly $250,000 from my company to theirs through a series of fake invoices for strategic consulting, market analysis, and brand development, none of which ever took place. But here's the smoking gun. The thing that made me feel physically ill. Ms. Evans traced where the money went from their shell company. They used it to put a down payment on a luxury condo downtown. They were quite literally stealing my company's future to buy their own. All the other expenses, the cars, the clothes, the parties, were just noise to distract from the grand larceny. They were bleeding the company from 1,000 cuts, but this was the stab to the heart. The report also included sworn statements from 2 junior employees who were bullied by Jessica into falsifying expense reports. They were terrified of losing their jobs and are now willing to testify if needed. When Ms. Evans left, Aria and I just sat in silence for a long time. There were no tears. The shock has worn off, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. Aria, my gentle, peace-loving wife, was the first to speak.
This isn't about family anymore, Alex. This is a crime. They didn't just make mistakes. They conspired against you, against our future, against the 45 people who depend on your company for their livelihood. You have to stop them.
She's right. The time for benefit of the doubt is over. The time for protecting family feelings is over. Now it's about justice and survival. So I have a plan. It's not a lawsuit, not yet. That's my last resort. This will be more direct. I've spent the last 24 hours with Miss Evans and a lawyer, preparing. We have created a binder. It contains every fake invoice, every bank transfer, the incorporation documents for their shell company, the condo purchase agreement, and the statements from the employees. It is an undeniable, irrefutable story of their fraud. I have called for a family meeting this Sunday. Just me, Aria, Will, Jessica, and my parents. I told my parents it was about finding a positive path forward. They think it's a reconciliation meeting. The game was over, and I was ready to make the final move, putting them in checkmate. They have no idea what's coming. Sunday arrived. Will and Jessica walked into my house with an air of smug confidence. They probably thought my path forward meeting was me finally caving, ready to accept their narrative and clean up their mess. My parents, Eric and Sarah, looked relieved, eager for the family to heal. Aria sat beside me, her expression calm and unreadable. We all sat in the living room. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment before I began. I didn't shout. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke calmly as if I were delivering a quarterly report. I started by saying, "Thank you all for coming. I called this meeting because I've completed my review of the company's financial situation. I have the results here." I placed the thick binder on the coffee table with a solid thud. Will scoffed.
Oh, here we go. Look, Alex, we already told you we did what we had to do. It was a tough situation.
I ignored him and opened the binder. On page 1, I said, "You will find the incorporation documents for a company named Strategic Edge Consulting, created 2 weeks after I left for my honeymoon. Ring any bells?" I saw a flicker of panic in Jessica's eyes. Will just looked confused. I continued page by page. I walked them through the fake invoices, the wire transfers. I showed them the car leases, the designer clothing receipts. With each page, the color drained from my parents' faces.
This is just business. Networking. You don't understand how modern branding works. We were trying to elevate your company's profile.
"Elevate it?" I asked, turning the page. "Is that what this is? This is a wire transfer for $240,000 from my company to your shell company. And this," I said, sliding another document across the table, "is the purchase agreement for a condo on the waterfront, with the down payment made from the account of Strategic Edge Consulting. Your account." Complete silence. The air was thick with it. My mother, Sarah, just stared at the paper, her hand over her mouth. My father looked at Will and Jessica, his expression turning from confusion to horror.
Will? Jessica? Is this true? Tell me this is a misunderstanding.
Will and Jessica just stared at me, their masks finally shattered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure, cornered animal fear. I closed the binder. "So here is the path forward," I said, my voice as steady as steel. "You have 2 options. Option A, you will sign a legally binding confession of fraud and a repayment agreement. You will liquidate every asset you have, your cars, your designer clothes, and you will cancel the condo purchase and return the down payment. You will agree to a wage garnishment for the remainder of the debt, which I will enforce for as long as it takes. You will never set foot in my company again, and you will never speak of this to anyone." I paused, letting the weight of it sink in. Option B, I don't say another word. I simply take a copy of this binder, walk out of this house, and drive to the district attorney's office. Given the evidence, you will be charged with multiple felonies. You will almost certainly go to prison." My mother started sobbing.
Alex, you can't. They are your family.
I looked her straight in the eye. They stopped being family when they decided to steal from me and jeopardize the livelihoods of 45 other families. This is the choice. They have 24 hours to give me their decision. I stood up. Aria stood up with me. We walked out of the room, leaving them with the binder and the ruins of their own making. It has been 6 months since that terrible Sunday meeting. To everyone who has followed this story, thank you. Your perspective kept me sane when I felt like I was losing my mind. The 24 hours I gave them were the longest of my life. The next afternoon, my lawyer received a call. They had chosen option A. Faced with the undeniable proof and the real threat of prison, their bravado evaporated. The process that followed was methodical and brutal. Lawyers were involved on both sides. They signed the confession. The condo purchase was canceled, and we recovered the down payment, minus some penalties. The luxury cars were returned to the dealership. I have seen photos of them selling their designer watches and handbags on consignment. My parents, to my surprise and their credit, remortgaged their home to give them the money to pay back a significant lump sum immediately. It was a devastating act of love, and one that has cost them their financial security and retirement. The repayment plan for the remaining balance is in effect. A large portion of any income they earn comes directly to my company. It will take them years, maybe a decade, to pay it all back. My company survived, just barely. I had to let go of 5 employees, a decision that still haunts me. We've had to downsize our operations and rebuild trust with our suppliers. We are smaller now, but we are stable. The employees who stayed are more loyal than ever. We went through a war together, and we came out the other side. The family, however, is destroyed. That is the true cost. I have not spoken to Will or Jessica since the day they signed the papers. I see no path to reconciliation. The trust is not just broken, it's been burned to ash. My relationship with my parents is strained and formal. We speak on holidays and birthdays. The old warmth is gone. They love me, I think, but they can't look at me without seeing the son who brought the hammer down on his siblings. And I can't look at them without remembering how their blind favoritism almost cost me everything. My marriage to Aria is the one thing that has become stronger. This crisis forged us into a true partnership. We faced the worst, and we chose to face it together. She is my co-pilot in rebuilding our life and our business. We are finally planning to start a family of our own next year, building something new and positive out of the wreckage. The lesson I learned is a painful one. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Protecting what you have built, your business, your future, your self-respect, can sometimes mean drawing a line so deep and so clear that some people, even family, can never cross it again. I didn't want this fight, but by standing my ground, I saved my company and, in a strange way, I saved myself. I am no longer the person who will sacrifice his own well-being for the sake of keeping a toxic peace. And that, I've learned, is a strength, not a weakness. Thank you all for being a part of this journey. Your support has been incredible. This was a dark chapter, but now it's closed. If you want to hear more stories about life, business, and overcoming challenges, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We appreciate every single one of you.